In an increasingly digital world, entertainment industries have been attempting to stem the tide of the streaming age. As a result, dozens of new projects get developed and released every year with the prospect of harnessing multi-generational appeal to turn a profit. The big three have been carrying the torch in this area for a while now. Each one of them has at least one notable series that's revitalizing their older brands critically and financially. And while Cartoon Network has been working with multiple homegrown reboots and spin-offs simultaneously, specializing mainly in action comedies, one rising star has surprisingly broken off through the ranks as an anomaly of sorts. As of now, arguably the most well-performing reboot on the network is a non-canonical spin-off based off of a Canadian animated reality series that's gotten steady airtime on the network for at least 10 years as just an acquisition. This phenomenon is not Johnny Test related. Gotta clear the air right now. We call it Total Dramarama. Or more accurately, Total Drama Daycare, as was the working title. In order to understand how we got here, we need to set the proper context. The 2000s was an unstable period for Western TV animation due to the constant technological shakeups underway. While animation from the early to mid-2000s is generally regarded well despite these changes, the late 2000s is regarded more or less as a low point of mediocrity for the North American animation industry. As studios realigned to match the evolving technologies, so did the epicenter of that growth. As such, much of that growth happened to originate from Canada. To be clear, Canada has been an invaluable asset in the international animation industry for decades now, but arguably their effect on the North American industry hasn't really been felt until the late 90s with the rise of Toon Boom and the ease of use for digital animation pipelines. Up north and all around the world, animators work on all types of neat stuff, but the average American cartoon viewer will only see a fraction of that work. These usually come in the form of the acquisitions purchased to pad out the lineup of various networks. From the mid-2000s onward, Cartoon Network became more notable for its premier selection of Canadian animated imports. From Almost Naked Animals to Zix, dozens of series got the chance to shine on the network. Despite their varying longevity, many came and gone without a trace, or came to be universally panned by all. While a significant few can mostly be noted to have had a positive reception, only one stands out as a true breakout hit. In the blink of an eye, Total Drama hit the small screen with its inaugural season, Total Drama Island. As the first animated reality series for adolescents, it came to television with the purpose of bringing older kids back to watch cartoons. As a modern spoof of the booming reality show genre, it surveyed kids on what they perceive to be the best and worst qualities of reality TV and infused that into the series structure. Mainly based on Survivor, the series followed 22 teenage contestants on their journey to win $100,000 at the hands of a sociopathic Jeff Probst impersonator, Chris McLean, and his ex-con life partner in crime, Chef Hatchet. On a budget of 8 million Canadian bucks, the team involved produced 27 half-hour episodes and planted the seeds for animation domination. Several attributes of production helped make Total Drama the phenomenon it has become. Total Drama Island was much like its peers in Canada or on Cartoon Network, but it also established itself as something unlike anything else airing. Quickly gaining ground as much as a Cartoon Network original would, the series netted high marks for its commitment to the older demographic. Despite initially being aimed at the 8 to 12 set, the contestant status as teenagers was properly established and expressed within the series through how they were written. As an edgier component of the comedic lineup, much of Island was censored for language, suggestive situations, and random amounts of hogwash the network thought to shield vulnerable flapjack viewers from.
It's beef testicle bourguignon.
Of course, the swaths of toilet humor were kept in and accentuated by the edgy flash animation. Literally. Since the series was funded on 8 million Canadian smackaroos, presumably the flash animation was crafted on a mere fraction of that. The art style itself is very angular and geometric, with bold outlines accentuating these features. The characters are amalgamations of organic yet complex shapes, while the environments take on simpler shapes with the same edge. The arguably flat style popped in contrast to the animation, giving it the look of a modern 2.5D CG series. For 2007, the puppet rigs assembled exceeded the technical excellence of many other series. While the sharp-looking character models come out at times with stiff expressions and poses, it's leveled out by the crazy amounts of physical humor thrown in, requiring a manic type of physicality that was always well-timed and always well-executed. It didn't really abide by the style guide of the decade, nor does it by today's standards. It wasn't a particularly popular style to go with. Despite that, its quality wasn't really matched by anything else out at the time.
What you're seeing now is a whole age group like myself and you who grew up on animation, loved it, and still have an appetite for it. And we've got technology that's able to make a movie that's as beautiful and warm and real and emotive as Ratatouille, for instance. This is something that I don't think Ratatouille could have been technically produced even 3 years ago, right?
Total Drama had a very specific demand for a highly energized, cost-effective style that packs a punch graphically, which didn't usually apply to television animation projects at the time. Thus, the perfect storm of exaggeration and subtlety helped create a signature look and feel for the show.
So the tools are getting more and more versatile, and in television, the tools are getting more and more affordable. So small independent companies like Fresh are able to go out, get those tools, and make beautiful products at a TV price. So I think all those forces are kind of combining to make it really popular now.
Perhaps most paramount to all elements that make up the show, the character dynamics are the epicenter of Island's appeal. While starting off with stereotypical teen archetypes as the focal point, most of them slowly blossomed into complex and challenging characters in their own right. Even if some didn't hit their peak characteristically, the diverse mix of archetypes almost always made for an entertaining season. What aided this element in the first series was the somewhat slower pace that allowed for us to see the characters unravel and reveal hidden depths as time went on. The series is naturally well produced, but a few external elements helped propel it to universal acclaim. Of course, the lack of pure originals on Cartoon Network gave imports a special focus, especially amidst the CN Real period. Even by 2010, Total Drama and 16 were still airing new episodes alongside Flapjack and the soon-to-be mega-hit Adventure Time. This series not only embodied reality TV, but it thrived organically in the chaos of its own reality. Around the world, viewers were allowed to vote on who should win based on who makes it to the season finale. As such, 2 endings were always created for every season finale since conception. This high-stakes element of the show was kept under wraps to the point where most crew members, including voice actors, were made to sign NDAs so as to prevent the identity of the winner being leaked early. Inventing this participatory element further heightened Total Drama's popularity well into the franchise's life cycle. Over time, the franchise took many deep dives and steep climbs in quality, as many of the original fans grew less and less interested in the material. A few cast replacements led to series like the middling Revenge of the Island, the infamous All-Stars, and the mediocre but wholly inoffensive Pakatu Island. A full spin-off of the franchise came in the form of the Redonkulous Race, a return to form quality-wise as far as the fandom's concerned. As well as it didn't serve as a proper return to the Survivor-esque phenomenon despite its similarities in quality to the best seasons. While the demand was still there, the desire to lean in a different direction was still strong amongst the Total Drama crew, who looked back at how much things had changed and decided to get off with a relatively fresh start. Thus, the mutual decision to birth a new spin-off was reached under rather dubious conditions. Thus, we're roughly brought back to the present with the advent of this new series. Considering the circumstances of going from a high-stakes, high-energy serialized competition series to an episodic slice-of-life comedy, it's fair for initial reaction to be bewildered, skeptical, upset, or any combination of the three. Even after the series premiere, it's perfectly understandable to just see this show and hear nothing but white noise. The fandom, from what I can fathom, was definitely reeling from this news upon announcement, as were many others. Realizing how closely it parallels the rough history of another Cartoon Network heavyweight, Teen Titans Go, it's fair to question the purpose of going through with this series. But half a year and half a season later, it's time to examine why this series really works despite its abstract premise. The first and foremost point to establish is that the decision to make this series was rather spontaneous. After years of an unofficial affiliation, Cartoon Network pitched the idea of a comedic spin-off to the team up north. Initially proposed to be a gang of school-aged children, the creators instead pushed the ages back to 4 years old to expand their storytelling prospects. I imagine that while this wouldn't be a concept the creators would think to pitch, it came as a welcome change of pace for them. Much of Total Drama's degradation stemmed from the writers' inability to keep up with the changing character dynamics, game components, and new environments thrown in. For as much as new twists kept audiences on their toes, it also drove some series into the ground with poor characterization, forced relational developments, and trite plot twists. Even arguably the best series of the franchise was significantly hampered by the addition of a disastrous love triangle. Off the bat, the lack of strict format in Dramarama allowed the old guard to more freely work with these characters, allowing them to return to their island characterizations, or at least something close to it, with mostly a new crop of writers. This became one of the main draws to the cartoon since its release. In a way, the episodic format is actually helping keep the characters consistent despite its grounded setting and somewhat fantastical elements. The setting and premise are the focal points of the series. It follows half the original cast as adventurous toddlers as they raise hell in a daycare managed by none other than the former chef, Hatchet. Common plotlines for Dramarama may include, but are not limited to, doing show and tell, feeding the goldfish, curing the hiccups, catfishing the teacher to save Pizza Day, staging a coup to usurp the class firefighter, stopping aliens from taking over radio-sensitive hot dogs, defending the right of the ant to coexist in a court of law, saving the fudgy lumps from being devoured by wild animals, crowning the class ninja, and becoming internet famous. Save for a few brief moments, romantic elements are completely thrown out because all the characters are married to the wacky reality-bending chaos of Total Dramarama. Half the time, storylines end with a definitive conclusion, and others end whenever 11 minutes have elapsed. The segments are presented similar to the likes of The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, wherein each story is just a small vignette on a loose timeline of events without much credence given to the chronological importance of them. Each aspect of the show gives it more of the impression that controlled chaos is right around the corner each time the theme song starts up. Despite its antiquated premise, the series doesn't really utilize stock premises or concepts. Most episodes seem to start off with a base story element and runs with it in all directions without heavy usage of typical endings or story beats. Not too bad for a self-described workplace comedy. Loose continuity, callbacks, references to past material are all there, but they operate within their own rules of consistency. Characters from previous series appear as one-off gags and recurring characters alike. The main characters are all first-generation contestants from the previous series, with the exception of a surprise addition from another fresh TV property, 16. The main reason for the latter change most likely being that while the producers realized it'd be criminal to keep Chris McClane around as a daycare worker, it'd be even more criminal to cut his voice actor from the new franchise installment altogether. Thus, the decision to merge the two worlds was set. Sure, it's a bit bizarre, but it's an EU, so who cares?
Yep, it's an alternate universe. Physics don't apply.
A main aspect that makes Total Dramarama favorable among the fandom is its return to form with regard to character dynamics. To me, the main thing that sets it apart from Teen Titans Go is the consistent characterization, which makes the transition from the main series much smoother for many fans. Despite the antics the characters embark on being just as trivial and simplistic, their reactions to such are not particularly out of character. Some of them have even taken on other quirks or more animated personalities, but they are toddlers here, so go figure. The more they change, the more they stay the same. Some characters carry over their fan-favorite status to Dramarama and the large amounts of screen time that they may get. However, all of them mainly operate as an ensemble, and each time any character gets the spotlight, they light up the stage with flying colors. Speaking of which, the art direction for the series is amazing. Apparently, it took less than 2 weeks just to redesign the main characters, which excellently adhere to the signature flatness while also making these younger designs easy on the eyes. Animation for this series reached its peak, as the expressiveness, timing, and design are built well upon the animation of the previous season. Add in the short but sweet end segments, and you've got yourself a really visually stimulating cartoon on your hands. This much is obvious, but the more animated appearances of these characters is also due to their co-conspirators behind them the microphone. Half of the kids have kept their original voice actors since Series 1. As such, their legacy voice actors have tight control as to how their characters understand the world around them. This means that even if a character's voice goes up an octave, the core of the character is still communicated as well as when they were on Wawanakwa. Take Duncan, for example, and his voice actor, Drew Nelson. His voice is dramatically pitched up for this role, but his cadence still resonates heavily with the same punkish delinquent from years prior.
I don't know, dudes. Bridget and me, we kinda hooked up. I don't feel right about joining an alliance without her.
Let me tell you the truth about women. They're all sisters, and when push comes to shove, they're gonna stick together. Haven't you ever seen a chick flick before?
Well, yeah, but...
Look, man, now's the time, while they don't see it coming, while we have the element of surprise.
Did you just fall from the sky?
Yes! The world's most sickeningly sweet children's singers are gonna be here any minute! They sing about vegetables and puppies. You two are relatively normal. How are you okay with that?
I was going to have a segment in here about how tragic it must have been for him to come back to Duncan in this state, but considering everything that happened with All Stars, it's probably a welcome change of pace.
I'm surrounded by so much heroic kindness. Wow, I think it's starting to rub off. Is that why Gwen dumped me? Whatever. I'm still bad. Just watch. Come on.
Of course, this doesn't diminish the performances of the new actors. This season, there are 5 new VAs on the scene replacing the voice actors from the previous series. Assuming that Cartoon Network had a degree of decision in the casting as well, it's theorized that some of the old guard were blocked from the show due to creative differences. As unfortunate and mysterious as the circumstances around that are, it's fascinating seeing these old characters being painted with a new brush. One of my favorite episodes so far would have to be Bananas and Cheese, wherein the power trio of Duncan, Noah, and Gwen work to stop a pair of children's singers from performing at their daycare. All 3 of them are committed to the task, but the former in particular has a strong and shocking motive in it all. It's a really fun episode that beefs up on character dynamics and backstory, even if it does mess with the continuity a bit. Thinking back and reading up on the previous seasons and how they were received, one thing that always struck me was that this episode in particular managed to do something quite special that I don't think most seasons could. Humanize and characterize one of their most popular characters in a dignified but challenging way. And it's not the same level of challenge that you would find in a previous season, and the character's still a little bit different. I mean, he doesn't keep his cool as he would originally, but hey, his fears and the dilemma that he's placed in is quite understandable, if not outright relatable. Overall, this series holds a lot of significance, not only as a high-quality comedic spin-off done right, but as a fandom favorite in the making. It basically serves as a giant healing experience for the higher-ups and the viewers that could really serve to mend the rifts of tension created from the below-average slop that the previous seasons brought. A lot of people were driven away by the worst of the franchise. While a lot of the fandom has definitely grown attached to Dramarama, the show proper ought to be more respected as a worthy successor to the brand as a whole, if it is to be one of the last entries in it, by the fandom and animation fans alike. Now, many of my points have been skewed towards more positive elements that are self-contained within the franchise. This show functions as fan service with a purpose and a sense of identity, but it definitely can resonate with people who aren't original fans. I don't really need to explain why or if kids like it. I think that much is pretty much obvious. However, I can try to elucidate why it may be appealing to viewers unfamiliar with the world of total drama. The comedy is solid. It gets a fair amount of use out of toilet humor, but it also utilizes a lot of visual gags, slapstick elements, bits of referential humor, and a tad bit of surrealism to keep things interesting. The series is similarly edgy and invested in dark humor like its older counterparts, but it's still light and bouncy enough to fit alongside Unikitty and OKKO. It's a fun little romp, and it doesn't wear out its welcome within the short run time it's given. The ensemble of characters are rounded out and diverse enough to keep you on the edge of your seat. Unlike the competitive seasons, the characters are not seriously combative and are more just so along for the ride like the rest of us. From a visual standpoint, the composition is simple but strong. Aside from the pointed character designs, the layout of each shot is clean but recognizable. Much like Teen Titans Go, its expressiveness leads to a lot of singular action shots which help establish the wilder, childish nature of the young protagonists. And all in all, Dramarama really stands out on the lineup as a good product despite its setting and tone. Much of the initial skepticism was perhaps justified, but it is far too late in the game to slam it for just being total drama Muppet babies. Hopefully I might have explained exactly the reason behind its brilliance, and some of you will be inclined to give it a shot. Though, in this video's time, you probably could have finished a few episodes by now, so best get to it before the next episode premieres. Chop chop! The second season's been ordered, and it's on the way as the production started in March, so hopefully, if the new 52 episode order is only even as half as good as the first 52, you can bet they'll still serve to be an interesting time while they air on Cartoon Network. And hey, considering that this show also helped bring back reruns of Island and Action and hopefully World Tour, maybe it'll lead to us getting another spin-off in the way of a new series or a new spin-off altogether a la Redonkulous.